I am getting ready for my pheasant day hunt. It's opening day today in South Dakota. I'm running the dogs right now. One battle after another. There are also other ways to be afflicted by the demonic. Sometimes you can become a victim of other people's involvement with the occult. There's a case I worked on 4+ years ago where a woman who was really, she was a young, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s, but she had been cursed since she was a child from her grandmother, who was a witch. Or it was the mother that was cursed and the child somehow was affected, and that's a very super rare situation. She would go in a trance every single time, and she would it's sad to even say this, she would get tortured. She'd enter into a trance and then the demonic would manifest, but in the meantime she would be tortured. And the only way I know how to describe the torture, she would be like on fire. The screams coming out of that body and the pain was so... The only way I could explain it is if she was being set on fire. Just, you can't get those screams out of your head, and it would make me weep. Hear this little young 120-pound, young woman, and we had to wrap her so she wouldn't hold still. We had to wrap her with a blanket, and then she was on a table, and then we had women hold her down. Well, there was men at her feet, and then I was by her head, making sure that she doesn't choke on any spittle or vomit. That's how extreme it can become. It really opened my eyes up to how deeply involved a soul can become entrenched. You wonder, like, why does God allow such a thing? Hang on, my dog is pushing the limits of my... Hang on. You wonder why God allows that. And the only answer exorcists can come up with is that God permits such suffering for His... for other purposes that we don't understand. There might be, some connection between the suffering that you see and the soul that's been chosen as a victim soul. That's a real thing too. So yeah, there are varying ways how the demonic can afflict you, especially when you're cursed. Especially by family members. And in a separate case, there was a young boy that was cursed in the womb, and he was possessed with many demons, and it was just very... And he was a really strong he was in his later 20s, and it was helping him climb his way back out of it, but it really wasn't his fault, and he was also a victim. But it was through that journey he actually, maybe discerning priesthood, his vocation started coming, out in a sense. The more layers that were peeled back and the more demons that were exorcised, in the end, his piety really blossomed really beautifully. Devotions, daily mass, regular mass attendee. You see that side of it as well. It's really beautiful, where a soul who's a victim soul, like cursed in the womb, and then he's got to fight his way back out of that, and he never did anything. Those are the real challenging situations you find yourself in, and you wonder why God allows it. It just depends on there are spiritual laws and there are spiritual circumstances, legalistic spiritual situations. And when, you know, a witch or someone curses someone, those are real powerful spiritual effects. Like prayer on the holy side of things, curses and spells on the evil side of things, they're real. Especially when it gets high level involvement of some of the higher demons, and the depth of the curse and the depth of the spell that was used to do whatever, and you don't know it as an exorcist. You're like trying to figure it out, and sometimes you might not figure it out fully, how the portal was open and how the curse was laid, etc. So but that gentleman wound up getting liberated later on, and then he was discerning priesthood. So there's beauty that comes out of some of these things. His victim soul wound up having a powerful not conversion. He was always Catholic. It was just that, you know, the demonic were strongly tied to his soul, and he didn't do anything. Yeah, that's another, it happens. So never send a curse. Always send a blessing. Blessings are what God instructs us to do, especially when evil people do stuff to us. We really get mad, and I mean, when they do really evil stuff, you feel that anger, and you gotta avoid that. That's the devil trying to arouse. That's the only energy and power they have in the curse or the spell from some bad actor, is they're trying to get you to get mad, and that anger fuels everything. It fuels the spell. It fuels the curse. So it's like putting gasoline on a fire. Instead, you gotta say the rosary, offer a blessing, even bless the witch or the it sounds weird, but bless them, pray for their conversion, and then their spells are empty and they're powerless. And so the demons can't work with that. So send a blessing, never send a curse. And the other day, really weird situation. I ran into a really dumpy hotel, and they had no pet policy, which, you know, okay. But my dog Lily, I was carrying stuff into my room, and she followed me in. I didn't know, like a fly. She was on my heel, and I don't know, she got through the door faster than I realized. I let her outside in the field, open field. She was safe, you know. Anyways, they saw that, and they immediately kicked me out at 10:15 at night, when I drove couple hours to get to the only hotel I could. They kicked me out within 5 minutes, and they were definitely not even remotely nice. They were actually kind of cruel, and then they got really up in my grill, and I was so shocked, like, just because Lily tagged along. And then I put her outside, and I was like telling them they're gonna be in the van, you know, they stay in the van, and it didn't matter. So I had to drive another hour later, and I got finally in the hotel at like 11:30. Bizarre situation, who knows? But I didn't send a curse. As much as angry, I was so frustrated because I drove all the way over there. Then I'm in the van. The dogs need to, you know, they need their exercise. They need to eat. Traveling sometimes isn't perfect, but I sent a blessing. The whole hour that I spent from their hotel to the next hotel, I finally found a Motel 6, and they're dog friendly. I just kept blessing them. I blessed them abundantly. I blessed their marriage. I blessed their hotel. These very mean people. You don't send a curse. You give them a blessing. So God bless, and stay away from anything involving the occult. Run to the rosary. Practice the rosary. Do 1 decade a day. Don't. If it's too much, then slow down. It's a marathon. It's not a race. So just pace yourself, and eventually you get into the meditative state. That's what makes it go by fast, is you get your mind in the right meditative space with Christ and Scripture. All right. God bless.